Welcome back to My Mythical Meta. My name is Travis, and I am joined this week by my brother Benjamin.
Hello.
And my good friend Derek.
Hello.
So great to have the crew back together. Today we are finishing our series on big mana ramp Stompy with a twist. We've got a slightly different approach today. Normally we would do a cards for ramp episode, but y'all don't need that. Y'all don't need us to spell out which cards are good at ramping. Instead, today's episode is a response to a recent controversial take about the necessity of ramp in EDH. And that take is that you don't always need it. That take is that ramp does not belong in every deck. Exactly. It's crazy. And I mean, it's not crazy. We're going to talk about it. We are going to unpack this new, and when I say recent, I mean in the last 2 weeks that this has come up in a couple places, and we're going to see if we agree with this take or not. We're going to talk out what we feel about ramp, where it belongs in our decks, how much, how little, which strategies need it, which strategies don't, and see, are we interested in changing our approaches, or are we just going to keep doing what we do because we like the decks we build and we like the way our decks play out?
This week's community shout out goes out to Anthony.
Anthony.
All right. Thank you so much for joining our community on YouTube and supporting the show. Listeners, you can support the show by going to patreon.com/mymythicalmeta or joining our YouTube community anywhere our videos are playing. I think right there. If you click that button that says join, it'll give you the option to join as a metapod or a full hardness metapod. Now, the full hardness metapod is the equivalent of joining us on Patreon. You can choose either one. A regular metapod member supports the show but doesn't get all of the same perks. But you can see all the perks that are available to you by going to patreon.com/mymythicalmeta or clicking the join button down below.
That's right. And we are approaching the end of our road to 1K sub drive.
Yes.
Oh, it's so awesome. At the time of recording, we are at 949 subscribers. We need 51 people.
This is going to be the video that does it.
I think so.
Yeah.
Mark my words.
I think so, guys. We are so close. Whenever we do these viewership or subscription goals, it means the show is going to get better.
We might replace Derek with a professional.
Don't tease me now. My Tuesday nights, they're back.
And we've got one final incentive to push our viewership over the top. I have secured 3 sets of Eldorado Gaming's Hunting Dragon dice. You're going to see that product showing up on the screen as I talk about that, and 3 Eldorado Gaming playmats. Whenever we meet our 1K goal, we are going to host a giveaway on all 3 of our social medias, Instagram, TikTok, and here on YouTube. So make sure that you are following on all 3 so that you don't miss those giveaway details for an Eldorado Gaming playmat and that set of beautiful metal Hunting Dragon dice.
All right. That's exciting. That's cool. They're beautiful.
Yes, it's really exciting to be hitting 1,000. I'm so thankful. And our Instagram and TikTok have been at 1,000.
But yeah, they're over 2,000.
They both are over 2,000 now. It's been awesome to see the insane growth there. So y'all are going to start seeing the show improve. Derek, tell us about this week's episode. What are we talking about this week?
Kind of talk around the town is that, hey, you don't need ramp, like at all, like 0. And that is crazy to me, but also maybe a little tantalizing, a little like, well, hold on, maybe there is something to this. So
that's what I'm saying.
It's like
hearing the town loon, the town crazy person ranting on the corner. You know what it is?
Hold on, is he spitting fire?
Maybe the earth is flat.
What it is, it's the preacher in Whiterun that's screaming on the corner in Skyrim.
No one
about Talos.
No one.
Oh, you haven't played Skyrim, Derek?
No one. I played Skyrim 20 years ago when it came out in 2011.
But yes, the town crazy person who you've never listened to before, when you stop and think about it, it's like, wait a second. Maybe the Arasakas are vampires.
Now I can. Okay,
now you get that.
Yeah,
now you get that.
All right, I'm back in.
That's from Cyberpunk 2077. There's a crazy person shouting insane theories, but then when you sit and listen to them long enough, You're like, wait a second. And that's kind of what's happening for us today is we've heard from one source and then a second and then a third that you don't need ramp in your EDH decks. And it's interesting. Benjamin, what is the counterpoint here? What are those people saying?
I mean, they're saying that you don't play any ramp, that you replace it with different things. But, I think ramp is not a one-size-fits-all necessity for every deck. And that's kind of what they're saying, right? It depends on the deck strategy, what bracket you're in, to see if ramp is necessary at all. And if so, how should you be using it? And what we've been saying the last 3 weeks as we talk about ramp is that in brackets 1 through 3, mid-range is highly incentivized. The game changers being banned, combos being banned, land destruction being banned, extra turns being banned, means that mid-range runs rampant. And ramp is usually a core part of the mid-range strategy. So it's really hard for us, who mainly sit in brackets 2 and 3, to conceptualize a world where you're not playing that style of card. And we're going to talk about what we do in our decks and how we've used ramp. And then we're going to tell y'all, the listeners, how you should be thinking about ramp for your own decks. And then we'll talk at the end about, should you be running ramp at all? We'll get there.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember when I started deck building for Commander, I played Standard and Innistrad for a very short time before I saw a Commander product on the shelves. And I learned that it was Singleton, 100 cards, Singleton Legacy. And that was enough for me to be like, that satisfies the collector in me and the game player in me. And then I remember for the first maybe 2 or 3 years of playing, of not knowing what ramp was. And I would build a curve like Benjamin taught me, and I would have lots of stuff for standard. I had to have lots of stuff at 1, 2, 3, and then start tapering off at 4, 5, 6. And even then, I may not have been thinking that if I have a 7 drop in the deck, I have to survive 7 turns to play it. Not even realizing it's an impossibility for me to play this Avacyn Angel of Hope without including ramp in my deck.
Right. That's one of your earliest decks was Avacyn, and you often didn't get to Avacyn.
Yeah, that all changed because I discovered the Command Zone podcast. I'm happy to give them props here, even though a lot of their takes have gotten a little, it's not even that they have bad takes. They play at a higher bracket than me. They play at a higher bracket, and so they give different advice that doesn't necessarily fit with our meta anymore. But I still certainly learned a lot from them, and that's when I learned about ramp. Ever since then, I have put about 12 to 16 pieces of ramp in almost every single deck I build.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot think of the last time I didn't do this. And the reason for that is that this is Commander. I want to get to the 7 or 8 mana bombs that I can't get to in Standard, right? Or the cards that cannot see play anywhere else. In most of my decks, I love to include one of those gigantic Haymaker cards because it's not like I can play it anywhere else, right? This is the only format where it would even stand a chance. And if I don't include ramp, then I simply can't bank on a game lasting 7 or 8 turns. And yes, we play brackets 2 and 3. That is about where our games end, but it might end on your turn 8 instead of my turn 8. That's where the game is ending. That's right. Where the game is stopping. So I've got to include some ramp, and I need to include enough to where I hit it reliably. That to me is why 10 is not enough. I love to have an opening hand of 1 or 2 bits of ramp. That way I can start hitting my mid-game stuff, and like Derek talked about before the show, playing 2 spells a turn, playing multiple cards a turn. I like to have an abundance of mana for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just simply can't bank on the game lasting long enough if I don't include the ramp.
Right.
So that's my stance, and that's where I'm coming to this from, is I like to include a 7 drop. I like to include an 8 drop in my decks because that's what's fun for me.
Yeah.
It certainly would be a twist or a change if I decided that all of my decks needed to start topping out at 6 mana cards. That would be a major shift for me and my deck building. That's where I am.
For me, early on, when I joined their EDH group, I guess I played a couple times in 2014, whatever, but I really joined them in 2017, 2018 when I moved back to Houston. And at that time, I think part of why I was always the arch enemy is because I was playing big mana decks that could go over the top of them. And I had enough ramp and enough card draw when they didn't. I can't think of a time in my Commander life that I did not include at least 8 pieces of ramp. It's like, if my deck doesn't need ramp, I put in 8. Right.
Yeah.
Most are playing, like you said, 12 to 16, and I've got lots of decks. I've got at least 3 decks that play 20 plus.
Wow, that's just a ton.
Yeah, 2 elf decks, so that makes sense. So no, I guess it's 4 decks that play 20 plus pieces of ramp, just because that matches the style of what I play, which is mid range and control. And both of those want to be going over the top of your opponents, and that requires that you get to the top. And if I'm waiting, if I'm trying to play a low curve, I can't go over the top of someone who plays a Soul Ring and an Arcane Signet. They will constantly be ahead of me while I'm trying to control the board. And you can't control when your opponents are playing 2 or 3 spells a turn or playing bigger spells than you. It just doesn't work. Now, more recently, I've started to try to get into more aggressive style decks, and I still put ramp in them. As we've had this discussion over the last week, trying to figure out, do we need ramp? I have started to reconsider some of those decks. I haven't changed them yet, but I'm thinking about it. But what I've noticed is even in my most aggressive decks like Ragavan, where I'm playing my commander on turn 1 and probably not a ramp spell turn 2 because I'm trying to play what I just got from my opponent, I still play like 10 or 11 pieces of ramp in that deck. I know how I justified it in the moment, which is my opponents are playing big mana spells, so I need to have enough mana to cast their spells. But also, I could play my own spells when I can't cast theirs.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a ramp spell. Like the way
I've kind of your own cards that you're drawing.
Yeah. I'm realizing that playing so much ramp, even in decks that maybe don't need it, automatically shift your decks into mid-range gameplay. My Ragavan, as aggressive as it is, plays like a low to the ground mid-range deck. I still have like 5-drop dragons and stuff in there that are trying to play with the treasure theme. I'm starting to reevaluate, but we'll get there. Yeah. As of right now, I still play lots of ramp in all my decks.
Yeah. Derek, how about you, man?
Yeah, well, when I first started, my first commander deck I built was Omnath Locus of Mana, which is the mono green Omnath. And I have loved green ever since. And every deck I build, almost all of them are green in some way, one of their colors, because I like to play big creatures and I like to make a lot of mana. So I am constantly running like 13, 14, up to like 16, 17 in like a normal green deck level of ramp. And then, every once in a while I might have a big mana deck. Well, they've all got a little bit of big mana in it. But for the like Joda deck, stuff like that, I think I run like 20 plus, maybe 25 pieces of ramp. I mean, it's, I gotta hit my colors and I have to be prepared to hardcast a lot of stuff. I think every one of my deck has at least 1 or 2 cards that are 7 CMC or more, and I would like to be able to cast those cards at some point in the game.
Yeah.
So I'm always kind of working towards that goal.
Our meta is still one in which most of the decks are mid-range or straight up big mana, like our archetype guide from a couple weeks ago, and you can see that video here.
Now, one exception to that is Randy, who doesn't play enough lands or ramp in his decks.
God bless him. God bless him.
And he's playing cards like Stormherd or now he has gotten much better. But so this is talking about 3 or 4 years ago, Randy. But that we can see the consequences of deck building without enough ramp by remembering those decks where he was playing really high end cards and not enough ways to get there. If we left him alone for the whole game and beat each other up, he might come in with a big spell at the end. But he was often a big target to take out first, just because he was open. He's sitting there going, I can't play my commander, and my deck's useless without my commander. And playing a 6-mana commander.
And then he'll have a turn where he plays Hedron Archive, but he tapped out to do it, and then doesn't do anything else. And then the next turn, now that he has a Hedron Archive, well, now he can play a Dreamstone Hedron. And we're just wondering, like, what is the point of all this? Because his board is still empty. And then that's when he might play a Stormherd. But it's exactly like Benjamin said. We can remember what our decks and what our performance looked like without ramp. So hearing a take that says you don't need ramp anymore, or you don't need ramp in the way you used to think about it, that's kind of jarring for us. And so what we're going to come in this next part is, what are the questions we should be asking ourselves when we think about the ramp in our deck, rather than the deck templates we've seen, and even the deck template we ourselves made a year and a half ago, which you can find here. It's an old recording. We didn't have recording of our faces yet then, but we have our own deck building template. And sure enough, it says 10 pieces of ramp or more. And we weren't asking ourselves these questions that we're about to describe when we did that deck building template.
Now, that's not to say
it was time to refresh.
That's right. That's not to say that template was bad. That template for building in brackets 1 to 3, the most common decks can follow that template, and it'll be very, very close to optimal as brackets 2 and 3 can be. Right? It'll get you there. Your deck will do its thing. And we've talked about that when we talk about our different archetypes, maybe more ramp, maybe less ramp, whatever, as you adjust for what your game plan is. But this is for players who are past using a template and are starting to actually think about deck building.
Yeah. Right. Here's our next section, that whenever you think about ramp, it should be in service to your deck's curve and your deck's game plan. So you've got to be asking yourself some of these following factors, some of these following considerations when you're thinking about the type of ramp you want to include. Benjamin, what's the first thing that somebody should probably think about when they're thinking about the ramp in their deck?
How much does your commander cost, and how soon do you want or need your commander to come out to make your deck do its thing? So the best examples of this are if you are playing a 3-drop commander, Timna or Grismold, something, Omnath, like you mentioned earlier. If you're in green, really green's the only one that can do this. A high level of 1-drop ramp, assuming it's beneficial to get your commander out on turn 2.
Yeah, at that point, you have to also determine if your commander is a setup commander or a payoff commander. Because setup, you want to get those out as fast as possible. Payoff, you can definitely hold back for a while until you've got the blocks in place to make it go off.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. If it's a setup commander and it costs 3, then playing Mana Dork so that you can play it on turn 2, or Exploration, or what's the other one where you can play lands when other people play lands? Burgeoning, Exploration, all those 1-drop ramp pieces that help you to get to 3 mana on turn 2. Those are all going to be very useful to get out a 3-drop commander that can go. Animar, like we just had a deck tech, wants to play Mana Dorks, both because it synergizes, but also because having Animar out a turn early is amazing. Just starts that ramp really high.
Yeah. The sooner you start getting those counters, the sooner he starts going off.
Yeah. Exactly. If your commander costs 4, then 2-drop ramp is going to be really useful for the same reason, getting the commander out a turn early. It starts to change things a little bit if your commander is a 4-mana payoff commander, like you were talking about. Your ramp can be adjusted to kind of to work with that. Or if you're there are some 2-drop commanders out there. Okay, so here's the biggest place where this is. If your commander's not in green and it costs 3.
Doing? The green, baby.
No, but I think I know what you're getting to, is that if you're not in green, then almost all of the ramp available to you is artifacts.
Yeah, and artifacts typically cost 2 for your good artifact ramp, right? Your arcane signet and your other signets and whatever. But you're not necessarily ramping into your commander. Your commander's still coming out on turn 3 on curve. So then the question is do you need that 2-drop ramp like that? Or are you better off maybe putting in some card draw or removal spells there, and maybe putting in other ramp, Gilded Lotus or something to go really big on the other side? Because that's the stuff you're ramping into. You're not ramping into your commander, and you certainly don't want to be playing ramp when your commander could be coming out. So really, the question is, what do you do after you play your commander, and do you adjust your ramp to see what's on the other side, rather than playing 2-drop stuff when you could be setting up or controlling the board a little bit?
Yeah, it's this to me is something that is a major consideration. I think almost all of the decks I build, I love setup commanders. It's just something that gets my gears turning. To pick every single other card in the deck is based on what it can do with this commander, based on how I can make that other card better if this commander is also out. And so for my entire life, I've been thinking, how can I get my commander out as soon as possible? And so it definitely is a different way to think, to say, can my commander wait? Can my commander wait for later? Does it need to be out as soon as possible? I do think the brackets have helped with evening out matchmaking. I don't necessarily have to worry about somebody else blowing me out before turn 4. If I'm playing in brackets 2 and 3, which is our normal play group, and even most of the time with strangers, I've been playing a lot more with strangers in the past few months because the bracket system has made that easier to do. And if somebody says I'm in bracket 3, I simply don't have to worry about being blown out before turn 6.
Yeah. You don't have to worry about saving turn 2 for a counterspell.
Exactly. So yeah, it's definitely very interesting. And here's another thing about your commander and the mana cost of your commander. Whenever I'm laying out my curve on my desk, I always put my commander on top of that column. On top of that column where their mana cost is. If my commander costs 4, I place him on top of the other 4s. Because when I get to 4, would I rather play my commander or any of those cards beneath it? And the answer for me has always been, I want to get the commander out. I want to play the commander as soon as possible. But it's an interesting thought experiment to say, well, are these other cards as good? Do they synergize well? Are they, and can I replace column 2? Can I replace the 2 mana stuff with more stuff that synergizes with the commander? Or can I replace the 3? Can I replace the 3 column with more card draw? Even the most basic bad card, Divination, pay 3 mana, draw 2 cards. That can serve a deck well if the rest of my deck is low on card draw because it was clogged up with ramp. Because it was clogged up with too much ramp.
I mean, I think a prime example of this would be in a deck like Griswold, which has access to green. On turn 3, when I have 3 mana, I want to be playing Griswold. The whole deck runs on Griswold. Griswold is the win con and the setup piece. Yeah. It's everything, right? So when I get to 3 mana, do I want to be playing a Cultivate or Kodama's Reach, or do I want to play Griswold? Okay, well, I've already decided I want to play Griswold. Well, okay, turn over to next turn. I've played Griswold, and now let's say I still have 3 mana, or now I have 4 mana. Do I now want to be ramping? Do I want to play my Cultivate now, or would I rather play a Token Maker?
Or Virulent Plague.
Yeah. And when I start to realize that there is no point when I have 3 mana or more than 3 mana that I want to be ramping, it means that I'm not playing. There's only one ramp spell in that deck that costs more than 2 mana, and that's Revel in Riches, because it gives me tokens when I wipe out the board, right? And otherwise, all my ramp needs to be done by the time I play Griswold. It's 1 and 2 mana, and then it switches gears, right? And that's where you're thinking about your commander, and then your curve in general. Like he was saying, you put your commander there, and if that's what you want to be playing at that point, consider, should your ramp be done there? Yeah.
Here's our next one. How high is your curve, and how important are your top end cards? So what is the highest mana cost card in your deck? And then how important is it to actually play it? How important is it to actually get there? And I think a great example of this is from our Big Mana Stompy archetype guide. Whenever we were describing the Big Mana Stompy archetype, we said a lot, kind of tongue-in-cheek, but half the deck should be ramp, half the deck should be threats. Well, if half your non-land cards, if you've got 30 cards that are 6 or more mana, and those are threats, then ramp is especially important in that archetype, because I must hit that top end. Meanwhile, I can imagine Randy's old Darien King of Kaeldor deck. He had Stormherd in the deck, but did the deck rely on casting it? Is it important to cast Stormherd? No, because Darien is making him soldiers every turn anyway. So casting Stormherd is getting Pegasus is equal to your life total, and it costs 10 mana. That's not Darien's actual plan. It's just a Christmas Land card. It's a bonus if you can ever actually get it. But more often than not, if you draw it anywhere before turn 10, then it's likely dead. It's likely dead and you can't play it. So in that case, do you keep that card in the deck because it's important and keep the ramp, or do you eliminate that and the ramp to free up more slots?
Yeah. I think Derek's probably our expert here on playing high mana curve decks. How do you calculate ramp cards for high curve decks?
It's a hard thing to the whole point of this video is that one size doesn't fit all. So
Right.
I would need to know what command you're doing, colors you're in, all that stuff. I just want to get out as many lands or ramp or whatever as fast as possible, so that way I can start doing either the biggest stuff or 2 of the medium things, and just try to keep the pressure on. I don't think I have any kind of thing. It's just vibes of like, this seems like it should be enough, and then I goldfish it until I feel like that's kind of where I want it to be. Or, maybe it's one of those situations where I draw the wrong half of the deck or something.
Yeah.
Hard to pin down how to do it.
I mean, I'm thinking about your Joda deck. Joda has the special ability that you can cast any spell by paying 5. And so what your goal is to get to 10, right? You want to get to 10 lands, or you want to get to 10 mana. That way you can cast 2 super spells a turn.
Well, yeah. So the idea is that I get to 9 mana, 4 to cast Joda, and then 5 to cast my first big spell.
Okay.
But ideally, I get to 10 mana, 2 of each color, so I can cast 2 big things a turn. That's the goal. So it's having to maybe Kodama's Reach and get one of this card, one of that, a mountain and a plains, stuff like that. You have to like just keep messing around with what you have in your deck. I mean, it also, card draw also has a lot to do with it. Like how fast are you drawing lands in your hand versus having to go search for them. So
and you already mentioned for your Joda deck that you have over 20 pieces of ramp.
Yeah, I could be making that number up, but I think it's a lot. I have to have the colors. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I've seen the deck list. I think you've shared that with us, but you've got to have 9 mana because I know exactly what you're talking about. Having Joda out, having done nothing, and it getting removed.
Yeah.
It's awful.
I can't afford to slow down.
You've got to shrink that window of vulnerability as much as possible. Mm-hmm. So playing Joda and a spell is absolutely, I think, the right move here. And
then they have to choose
9 mana.
They have to choose between killing Joda so you don't do it again, or killing the huge threat you just played,
right?
Which then just leaves Joda there for you to just do it again.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a Sophie's choice. I get rid of Joda. Well, I've got 9 mana. I'll just cast them again. And I'll probably have enough to ramp or play another land or something, or get rid of the big thing. Well, I'll just do 2 of them next turn. Like how are you going to stop
ability?
Me?
Yeah. So you want that 9 mana, and obviously in a deck like that, you want it as soon as possible. By what turn are you trying to get to 9 mana? Is it turn 5 or earlier? I don't know if
ideally it's turn 1, obviously, but it's impossible. So I want to do it as fast as possible because the sooner I do it, the more I've locked that game up.
Yeah.
If it's my turn 4 and I have 9 mana and you guys have 4, we might as well start the next game. Like I'm gonna hit you guys for 10 or 15 in one turn. Maybe I get Maelstrom Wonder and I just vomit out 20 CMC worth of things. We might as well go to the next game. So the later I get to 9 mana, the worse it's becoming. So I have to have lots of ramp and I have to have it soon. So I'm running a lot of low ramp.
You just have to have the critical mass for it.
Just doing a ton of it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's worth it for our listeners to hear, even though it is a more extreme example. I mean, Derek can manipulate the possibility of getting 9 mana quicker by changing the quantity of ramp in the deck. Like that's just the facts of probability and variance and how this game works is if you want more mana, then the faster you want it, the more of those ramping pieces you should put in.
I do have a big point to make about it all, but I figure we might as well get through it all, and then I just kind of bow tie it at the end.
Okay, cool.
Great.
Cool.
That sounds great.
Ask yourself in your deck creation, do you have ways to cheat things that cost higher? Derek, you're our expert on ways to cheat out spells. What are some things we should think about in this?
Well, the thing about the cheating out spells is that they're expensive, so you still need to ramp to get to those.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I mean, the more you can cheat, fair, legally, the better, because that means now I get to spend mana somewhere else. We keep talking about a critical mass of spells and threats, especially when like you're doing big mana things, but it applies to any ramp thing. It's just getting more value than someone else.
Travis put a good example here on the ways to cheat, where he talks about if you have Jaleva Nephalia's Scourge, that lets you cast things for free when you deal combat damage with Jaleva, right? And you're going to reveal stuff off the top. And it's running huge spells like Expropriate. Do you think that in a deck like that, you need ramp spells to get to Expropriate when Jaleva only costs 4, right?
Jaleva costs 4.
You're going to
Jaleva costs 4, and everyone exiles the top 4. And then if you have a recaster for 6, then everybody exiles the top 6. Right. And so on and so forth. So obviously, I put the question, you may want the ramp to ensure that you can recast Jaleva. Nobody wants to let her get a free hit in so that you can cast free spells. But you don't necessarily need the ramp for the purpose of casting those huge Haymaker spells. I don't necessarily need to hit 9. If I can hit 4 or 6, then I'm probably good.
Yeah. I think
because Jaleva is going to help me slap the table down if she.
I think I've mentioned it in another video, but I've got a Gashath deck, which is a dinosaur. When it deals combat damage, the amount of damage you dealt to a player, you reveal that many cards, and you put that many dinosaurs on the battlefield. I think at one point I said the most important thing you could be doing in a Geshath deck is playing Geshath. Like, that's the only card that matters, because Geshath will get out the rest of the dinosaurs. I mean, it's a dinosaur kindred deck, so let Geshath do its work, but we have to get to 8 mana. So the sooner we can do that, the better. So if I'm not playing ramp, I better be playing Geshath, or there's, you're not doing you didn't do a good job building the deck, I guess. And that deck has flattered on me a couple times. I need to go back and fix it because I don't have enough ramp in there.
Yeah. So consider those. Consider cheating spells like Sunbird's Invocation or Lurking Predators, both of which are at 6. Can your deck hit 6 and then be good? Do you actually need to hard ramp up all the way to 8 or whatever, depending on what the rest of your deck's doing? Benjamin, hit this next point, which I think is especially important.
Okay. So one of the most important things about ramp is trying to figure out, does your deck synergize with your ramp pieces? So typically the main ways to ramp are putting lands into play, like with a rampant growth or cultivate, using artifacts, soul ring, signets, things like that, mind stone, enchantments that enchant lands, enchantments that make things cheaper, or mana dorks. Those are typically your 4 ways to ramp, right? And different ones of those are going to be used depending on what your deck is trying to do. So there are artifact themed decks that, even if you're in green, you might be playing your signets to try to make sure that you have the artifact synergy, right? If you're playing landfall decks, or basically if you're playing, just to be clear, if you're playing green and you don't have a synergy with one of these types, you should be getting land out of your deck. It's in brackets 1 through 3, lands are safe. The ramp is permanent. Your lands are in play and will not be removed with a Vandal Blast or Wrath of God or whatever.
Which we'll get to later.
Yes. If your deck synergizes with one of these forms of ramp, that's going to steer you to that. I've got 2 different elf decks. Elves want elves to ramp. They're not going to play Birds of Paradise, even though Birds of Paradise would fit into those decks, because it's not an elf.
Not an elf.
Not an elf. It's mold, which I mentioned earlier. We'll put this here. Really relies heavily on enchantment ramp. 1, because there's an enchantment sub-theme, and 2, because mana dorks would get killed by all of the give everything -1/-1, give everything -2/-2. Those creatures are not going to survive to continue to ramp. I play them on turn 1, I play Griswold on turn 2, turn 3 I kill everything, and
that mana's gone.
That mana's gone, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to use the land ramp because it doesn't synergize as well as the enchantment-based ramp in that deck. This also, by the way, works with when you're talking about curve or going really big. If you know that your deck is going really big, you're going to play a lot more of those 4 mana get 2 lands out of your deck, or those really big artifacts that take you from 5 to 8 or from 6 to 9. Whereas I would never play anything like that in a landfall deck or in a deck that tops out at if my deck tops out at 7, I'm not playing Dreamstone Hadron. Just there's no reason to, But if I'm trying to get to Avacyn, I might.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to consider what your deck is trying to do, what synergy pieces, because as we've talked about in all of our videos, the more you can get your ramp, removal, card draw, all those template categories to synergize with your deck's main game plan, the more it's going to feel like your deck is doing the thing. So you really want to consider
more value
that.
You'll accrue. You'll get more than just what's printed on the card.
Exactly.
I was thinking, when you mentioned these different types of ramp pieces, I was thinking of Joyra, Weatherlight Captain. When you cast a historic spell, draw a card.
Yes.
Well, artifact ramp, cheap artifact ramp, is great for those cards because every single one of them is going to cantrip. Every single one of them is going to draw you a bonus card, and that's going to make it much more worth it. Let's see, it's red-blue. Why would I ever play Dreamscape Artist? Search for 2 lands onto the battlefield. That's not an effect I would ever use in Joyra because I'm not going to get Joyra's bonus card. There's no synergy between them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'd go even further. This is where we start to look at maybe I don't want to play ramp. If my game plan doesn't synergize with any of these, if I'm playing a mono black discard deck, I'm playing my white Wrath, 30 Wrath deck that I have.
Yeah.
I start to think, okay, none of these really synergize with that because I'm blowing up the board every turn. Mono white can do some land ramp, but maybe not, It start to think, could my deck be better served doing something other than ramping if ramp is just there for the sake of ramp and not there for the sake of synergy. Now, there will be cases, right? In Joda, he might have no synergies whatsoever except that he wants to get to 9 mana, and that's good enough reason. If your deck needs to get to 9 mana to go off, play some ramp, because by turn 9 you might be dead.
Yeah, any and all ramp.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But if your deck tops out at 6 or 7 and doesn't synergize with artifacts or landfall or mana dorks, then you start to go, let me consider what these other people are talking about and maybe replacing those.
Replace it with card draw and more lands.
Yeah, that might serve you better. So we'll get to that. But that's why that's one of the things you want to consider. If your ramp is synergizing with your deck anyway, why not? Right? Get ahead on the curve and start playing your big stuff. So it's just when it doesn't synergize at all and you're just sticking in there because it's ramp, maybe think a little harder.
Yeah. So our next one was, what does your deck want to be doing on turns 1 through 6? Our guides and most of what we discuss is we're talking brackets 1 through 3. You know, if you're in brackets 4 or 5, then you want to have 1 before turn 6 arrives. What do you want your deck to be doing? And think about where each of those ramp spells are. Are they at 2 or are they at 3? Do you want to take that turn off to ramp? If it's a Signet on turn 2, do you want to take turn 2 completely off and do nothing else and play a ramp spell? Or is it a turn 3 mana rock worth taking turn 3 completely off? Or do you want to have spent turn 3 making a couple tokens? Do you want to have played Raise the Alarm at that point?
Yeah.
I think Raise the Alarm takes 2. Cost 2 instead of 3. But I'm hoping the point still kind of translates that. Do you want to be setting up for later or starting your synergy early? Do you want to start your synergy sooner? I have a deck that I just built with Daxos Blessed by the Sun. Well, he's 2. Is there a reason in a deck like this to ramp at all? Because my commander can get out at turn 2, and then I play the next land the next turn and play a 3 mana token maker.
Yeah.
I want to start doing the synergy stuff as soon as Daxos is out. I don't necessarily want to continue ramping. I guess my Daxos deck isn't a great example because I filled it full of X spells that make tokens. So I do want to ramp. I do want to go big for those, but still.
Well, and I think that's a perfect example of how your deck building style of wanting to go big doesn't necessarily mesh with this idea of don't play ramp spells. But there is a Daxos deck in there that says you just play on curve. You have not that many 2-drops because you were going to play Daxos turn 2, but you have some number of 1-drops. You have a bunch of 3-drops. You have a bunch of 4-drops that make tokens, and you just kind of curve into that, and you top out at 5 or 6, and you say, I can play these on. I can play my 2 or 3 6-drops. You know, my Sun Titan when I get to it.
Yeah,
because it's a late game card anyway. I'm going to wait for stuff to die before I play Sun Titan, and I'm going to play. You know, I'm going to have maybe 5 5-drops and 10 4-drops, and 3 is where I want everything because it's Daxos turn 2 and then get started turn 3.
Then I start playing the rest of the deck. Yeah.
Yeah. I can totally see a Daxos deck that does that and says, I don't care about ramp at all. 1 Soul Ring because I can play it turn 1 and that's it.
Yeah. And then the rest of your 1 mana stuff is the other Soul Sisters.
Yeah.
And the rest of all your 2 mana stuff is the other Soul Sisters like Suture Priest.
Right.
The 2 mana ones that all do the same thing that Daxos does. So, yeah, I mean, man, that's crazy. Maybe I should remake that deck and get rid of those X spells and just say, here are some 3 mana spells that make tokens. Here are some 4 mana spells that make tokens. But I was able to infect somebody out with that White Sun's Twilight.
Yes, you were.
And that feels really good. See, like, yeah, it's tough. But anyway, that's what this point is. At what point are you switching from your setup, ending your ramp, to moving into synergy and value creation? And I do think it's reasonable to say there are some decks that should start the synergy value generation earlier. Just do it sooner rather than waiting until later.
There is a counter to that, which is, as Derek was mentioning earlier, allows you to eventually play 2 cards per turn. There is the opposing argument that says take turn 2 off to ramp, maybe turn 3 off to ramp, because then on turn 4, you can play what you were going to play on turn 2 and what you were going to play on turn 3 and be in the same place. So I can see the argument on both sides there. But man, not drawing an arcane signet on turn 7 just sounds really tempting. If you're
yeah, I mean, that is probably the biggest allure of this mindset is
just nothing but gas later on.
It's nothing but gas. Your deck is nothing but gas once you've turned the corner. Yeah. I never have to worry about hitting a turn 7 arcane signet. I don't need that. I don't want to have drawn that. It's too late for me.
Right.
If I didn't ramp at that point, it's too late. And if I did ramp before that, then I don't want that card.
One last thing on this one, which is as you're mapping out what you're doing on your turns, your budget can start coming into play because of tap lands. I've seen so many people that are playing 2 or 3 mana ramp, but half their lands come in tapped. That means your 2 mana ramp is happening on turn 3, or you're not getting to your cultivate till turn 4. And at that point, like the fact that you don't have things to play on curve that are something other than ramp means you're actually behind. Right? If you had a 2 mana removal spell that you're playing on turn 3, you can use that to maintain parity with people because you're killing a 3-drop. Or if they ramped, you're killing a 4-drop and you're keeping them where you are. But if it's a rampant growth, you're playing catch up and they've turned the corner and are playing threats. If you play a lot of tap lands, you have to look at, and this is true for every category, not just ramp, but you need to look at where you're realistically going to be playing things on curve. And playing ramp later is worse than playing other things later, in my opinion. I mentioned I have 2 different elf decks. Well, one of them is 2 colors and one of them is 3 colors. I got to make sure I'm not playing too many tap lands so I can play elves on curve, or else I'm really falling behind real fast and playing mana dorks on turn 3 and 4 when I need to be playing the big stuff. Yeah. All right.
Derek, hit point number 6.
When you're building your deck, also decide how susceptible to a board wipe are you going to be. Is a Vandal Blast going to send you back to the Stone Age? Does a Wrath of God get rid of all your little dorks? Farewell would get rid of everything, of course. I can't think of one that gets rid of just enchantments off the top of my head, but
Austere Command.
Yeah, okay. Well,
Serene Remembrance. There's like a 2 mana destroy all enchantments.
Yeah.
They're out there. If you lose everything, how devastating it's going to be? How can you get around that? Can you diversify your ramp? What can we do there?
And of course, in bracket 1 through 3, your land ramp is safe,
sacred. Yeah.
So play green or play there's lots of artifacts that get lands. They're less efficient, but they're safer. All right, this last one is: does your deck need mana fixing? And I had mentioned Ragavan earlier as still playing ramp, and this is really the reason why. So I didn't actually put a bunch in there because I was being a slave to the template. It's actually because Ragavan is playing other people's cards while only having access to red mana. So it needs artifacts in it that allows me to play blue spells, green spells, white spells, so that I can play off the top of your deck when I hit you. And so what's the rock that adds mana that your opponents have access to?
Fellwar Stone.
Fellwar Stone, right. It's playing Fellwar Stone. It's playing the one that can either tap for colorless or play 1 and tap it and add any color.
Don't know that one.
I know what they do. I don't remember their names. But there's
just know the sound they make when they kill a man.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's playing cards like that. They're not just ramp, but also fixing. And Derek was making this point earlier with his Joda deck, right? Ramp is going to be more necessary if your deck needs access to a lot of colors, even if it doesn't have a high curve. Because if you're playing a 5-color deck, you need to guarantee that you hit 5 colors. And so if you're drawing 3 forests early, your ramp can help you get the rest of the way there on curve. That when you play Joda, you have access to, let's see, Joda costs 1 blue, red, white, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you need 1 blue, red, white, blue, black, red,
Wooburg,
white.
Yeah,
Wooburg. Yeah, you need that's a very specific color combination. There's only one generic in there.
It's a tall
Ramp's
order.
Yeah,
for sure.
If you said, look, I'm going to play Joda on curve, I'm going to play Joda when I hit 9 mana. Well, chances are if you didn't use ramp to get to that 9 mana, you don't have the right colors. You're waiting longer than turn 9 to get there. It's too long.
It's just too long.
Yeah. And so we've covered several things that you got to consider. In our experience, most of these things lend themselves to you should play ramp in your deck. Most decks need fixing. Most decks want to be hitting their commander early or guaranteeing they hit their commander on time. Most decks want to be doing multiple things in a turn. Most decks have some way to synergize with ramp pieces.
Yeah.
And so you might as well take advantage of the fact that you can get ahead.
Get whatever bonus value you can while also getting extra mana. Like, it seems to be a win-win.
Yeah. But
that's right. Ahead. But the proposals we've heard about getting rid of the ramp in your deck are kind of tempting. A lot of what we're hearing is replace the ramp with more lands, card draw, and early game synergy pieces. So if you have 10 to 12 slots in your deck that have been dedicated to ramp for the last 10 years, imagine adding 2 more lands, 3 or 4 more card draw spells, and then 3 or 4 more early synergy pieces. 1 or 2 drop cards that also forward your game plan and accrue some type of extra value. Well, I like the sound of that. Because, I mean, Derek, you're the one always saying that every slot in your deck is precious, right? My deck can only hold 99 of those pieces of cardboard. And now you've got somebody telling me that I can have 10 more?
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I get to like 110 cards where I'm like,
exactly.
I don't know what to cut. Everything's so good.
110, and now people are giving you what seem to be somewhat valid reasons to say you can have those last 10 cards in your deck. Benjamin, hit us with 1 or 2 of those reasons. What are some bonuses to not having the ramp in our deck?
So, number 1, drawing ramp in the late game sucks. I can't tell you how many times I've said, heart of the cards, it's a rampant growth.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if I replace, say, half the ramp with just normal lands, that's no worse than saying heart of the cards, it's a mountain, because that's what my rampant growth is going to turn into, except I have to cast it and resolve it. So just drawing a mountain would be easier. It's going to be faster, first of all. Second of all, it doesn't cost me anything. So if I happen to have something to do with that mana, rampant growth and mountain get me to the same place with 1 extra land on board, but 1 didn't cost me anything. And so they're both feel bad top decking, but 1, when you're not top decking and have things to do, 1's better, and that's the land. So the argument is that in the mid to late game, when you're no longer holding lands in hand,
you've played all the lands from your starting hand.
Yeah, then you'd rather top deck a land than a ramp spell to get the same effect. And so ramp spells are only good for most decks. Now, obviously, we're in a series on big mana. Those ramp spells are good. Even in the late game, having, cascading into 2 more lands is great. Like, I don't mind that.
If your commander is Multani, playing a ramp spell is great.
Exactly. But if you're not playing a big mana 20 plus ramp spell deck, then in the mid to late game, you don't want to draw them. Playing a card that's only good on turn 2 or 3 and then never good again.
That's bad quadrant theory.
Yeah, that's terrible. That card doesn't have the versatility you need it to do in a limited deck. That's the main central argument to this, is that most mid-range spells with a good curve that maybe have 1 7-drop and everything else is 5 and below doesn't really need to be playing ramp to get there. Derek, what's another?
How I mentioned earlier, like, how susceptible are you to like wipes? If you're running artifact ramp, board wipe sets you back. If you're not running, any kind of ramp at all, board wipes aren't so scary. Like, well, okay, I'll just play the next thing.
A Cyclonic Rift, and you rebuild so much faster than everybody else. Because everybody else rebuilds by going Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, pass.
The number of times that's happened, I mean, we play
in our
that's
group.
Happened to us in our group.
Oh, yeah. And you just watch 3 other people rebuild all their mana rocks and pass.
Mm-hmm.
But to just be ready to play your threats back, that's enticing.
It is.
And I'll speak for myself. I put Vandal Blast in every deck that can run it. Y'all can say what you want about Austere Command. I basically run Austere Command in every deck that can run it. Because I love that versatility. And I will look around the board and count how many mana rocks everybody's got. And this is something we mentioned earlier. Casual EDH games go long enough to hit your high land counts.
A lot of our listeners are saying that they prefer games that go 10 plus turns. There you go.
Yeah, we're in brackets 1 to 3. You should be safe in those brackets. Again, in those brackets, you really should be okay to just play your 1 land per turn. Now, just like we said, if you're cutting out the ramp spells, you should replace some of them with card draw spells so that you can hit each land.
Yes. You should be playing
so
more
let's
lands
say,
and
just
more
for the
card
listener
draw.
Listening, we're getting rid of 10 ramp cards. How many extra lands should they put in there? Let's say they've got 38 lands already and 10 ramp spells.
Well, if they've got 38 already, I'd probably maybe three more lands and 3 to 4 more card draw spells. And so that gives them 3 or 4 more synergy pieces.
There's something in my head that says if I'm not playing landfall, I don't need more than 40 lands.
I think that's accurate. I think that if you're I'm not going to say that that's 100% the rule, but that's probably 80% the rule. For me, I typically I figure out whatever curve I'm playing, and I'll start with a land count that will accurately play that. So if my curve, is a normal, tops out at 4 where my commander is, and then I slopes down evenly on both sides and tops out at maybe 1 7 drop and 3 6 drops, and a good mana curve, I usually will say that deck needs 38 lands. Right. And then, and this may be inaccurate, but then as I start adding in ramp pieces and card draw, I will say a ramp plus a card draw spell, I can probably remove a land, depending on what the ramp spell is, right? So a soul ring just goes in place of a land. And then I say, okay, then a 2 mana ramp spell, I can remove half a land. This is a deck that's not a ramp deck. I'm putting in ramp so that my land starts scaling back, so that my decks ultimately usually end up running 10 to 12 ramp and only 34 lands.
Okay.
If I was going to cut 10 ramp, I need to go back up to at least 38 lands.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. If you're cutting the ramp, then your lands need to go back up.
Yeah. Because in like a normal curve standard deck, you're typically playing 40% of your deck should be lands. Higher if you're playing control, lower if you're playing aggro, and you can usually cut or add depending on ramp and card draw in a standard deck. And so I apply the same principles to commander, and I say, because I know I'm running 10 to 12 card draw spells, I can go 39 to 40 is 40% of 99. I'm just going to start at 38 with a similar curve to what I might be playing to a mid-range standard deck. And then now obviously there's so many different archetypes that where you should start if you're not playing any ramp is, I mean, the range is huge. There are decks that probably want to be playing, if you're not playing any ramp, probably want to be playing at 45 to 50 lands. But then I would argue, if you're playing those decks, just put your ramp pack in there. Don't be doing this. If your deck needs that many lands to function, put back in your rampant growths and your cultivates, and just
because you're probably looking for the landfall effect. You want as many lands as you can hitting the battlefield.
Yeah,
entering to gain that value.
Don't cut ramp from Multani.
Yeah, literally as you were saying that, I was thinking of my Gates deck has 45 lands in it, but it also has 20 ramp pieces in it. I need to be turboing those out from the deck and graveyard in order to get all the gates out. So that makes sense. And that last thing we talked about, a possible replacement for ramp, is early game synergy pieces.
Yes.
1, 2, and 3 drops that also synergize with your commander. With early game synergy, you can start beginning the game plan faster. You can begin the game plan sooner with your commander sooner and start accumulating more value quicker. I just mentioned my Daxos, Blessed by the Sun. He comes out at 2. Well, the next turn after that, I don't want to be playing my 2 or 3 drop ramp spells. I don't want to play an Arcane Signet after Daxos is out. Like, once Daxos is out, I need to be playing Raise the Alarm. I need to be playing Captain's Call and getting those tokens to enter and start gaining the life from his effect. So that's what that early game synergy is going to allow you to do, is start accumulating more and more value. Obviously, this is going to depend on the commander, but that value could be cards, life, your commander's power and toughness changing, or whatever the effect is. But a lot of legendary creatures are based around this, is do something while I'm on the board and I'll give you a bonus for it. With early game synergy, you can do more of that, and you can start doing the multiple spells per turn where you have those cheap spells and a medium cost spell. Now on turn 5, you can play a 2-drop and a 3-drop and get your 5 mana's worth of stuff, and all of it is synergizing with what your commander's doing.
Yeah. A good example of what you might be playing here is your Swiftfoot boots. Your just all the stuff that you can set up your protection pieces instead of a rampant growth and play it early.
Awesome. With all of those considerations in mind, we do want to be transparent with our viewers. We want to make it clear that we have not done this yet. We haven't done the reps in the gym of saying, here's my deck with no ramp in it and I've played it 10 times. We have not done that. Right now, it's all still conceptual. We're just going through the thought exercise of it. But we do find it intriguing. and we have games coming up. We've talked about building for Pendragon with Randy, and maybe I don't need as much ramp in my Pendragon deck since it's all commons anyway.
Yeah, that's very tempting. You're right.
You know, it is really tempting. And Benjamin, you were talking before the show about a deck that you have in your arsenal now that you can conceptually see benefiting from this train of thought. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so we've done a deck tech on this one before. This is John Arenicus, and I feel like it's a great candidate to do this. So as built and as talked about in our deck tech, it currently runs 10 pieces of ramp. That's right where most templates will tell you. And it's all the 2-drop ramp, you know, all the mana rocks plus a soul ring and all that. And with a 2-drop mana rock, it can potentially play John Arenicus a turn early. But the whole deck's theme is to set up John Arenicus by putting things on the board that I can give away. And then after I play John Arenicus, I'm willing to play things that hurt other people that I can give away. I don't want to play those before John Arenicus. I want to play them after.
Because they'll hurt you if you play them before John's
Exactly.
out.
Exactly. They'll hurt me immediately. But also, I don't want to play John Arenicus on an empty board, because he's a sitting duck. He has no protection. He doesn't have a body. And if I play him on an empty board and wait, then it's likely I get no value out of the 4 mana I spent on him. So he's kind of in a weird spot where I want to play him on a board, and the stuff I play before him, I don't want it to hurt me. And the stuff I play after him, I want to be able to give away right away. So I don't really have much incentive to get him out early. A very common thing is turn 1, tap land for most people, or whatever, turn 2, mana rock, turn 3, 4 mana commander. Well, if I do that with John Arenicus, I'm playing him on an empty board. I get no value. He has to survive a turn, and then on turn 4, I can play my 4 or 5 drop and give it away. I would be much better off, I think, playing a creature turn 2, a creature turn 3, John Arenicus turn 4, give away one of those while I keep the other as a blocker, or as sacrifice fodder for somebody else's Fleshbag Marauder, or whatever. Then turn 5, start playing the big stuff that's going to hurt people, and go from there. Or turn 2 boots.
Yeah.
Turn 3 creature that I get some value from, and then give away when I play John Arenicus turn 4, or Greaves. Stick Greaves to John Arenicus. There's just so much of this that I'm starting to wonder, what is ramp doing in that deck? The curve's not that high. I think I might have 1 or 2 6 drops, but everything else is 5 or less. And I'm not playing a whole lot at 4 because that's where John Arenicus is. I'm playing a ton of 1 and 2 drops precisely because of this. I want something on the board when I play John Arenicus.
So just replace the ramp with even more of those.
Even more of those. A few more lands, a few more card draw spells.
Draw when they hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect thing. Yeah. Probably play 3 more lands, 3 more card draw spells, 4 more creatures. And those card draw spells will actually probably be creatures too. So it's probably just 3 more lands and 7 more creatures that fit in the 2 and 3 drop slot.
Yeah.
And the deck will probably be that much more smoother playing 0 ramp. And it is a mid-range / control deck, but I can't think of what the ramp's doing in that deck.
Yeah. I see it. You know, I recently did a deck purge, and I did dismantle my Krenko Mob Boss deck, and that's a deck I've had for a decade at least. But as we were talking about this, I was thinking of my Krenko deck. That's a deck that I probably could have cut the ramp out, because instead on turns 1, 2, and 3, I should be playing goblins.
Yes.
I should be making goblins and playing boots. I should be playing goblins and making sure that Krenko can have haste when he enters.
Yeah.
That is what I've got to be doing so that Krenko, bam, can do his token doubling immediately. Playing Krenko and then doubling to add 1 goblin token, that's not good synergy. That's not good Krenko tech. So drawing cards is what I need, because if I can play 3 1-drops, then I'm going to be empty-handed really quick. But drawing cards, more cheap goblins.
More haste enablers.
And haste enablers. Yeah, I probably don't need to add any mountains.
Right.
To that deck, again, because the curve is so low in the first place. Why is the ramp in here if I'm topping out at 5 for Battle Squadron? Like, it's just not necessary.
I used to have Feather the Redeemed. I feel like it's another creature that could benefit from it. I cut up the ramp and add in more protection spells, more card draw spells, because everything's like super cheap. Everything, all the spells are like 1 mana instants or something.
Right.
Feather only costs 3, right?
Yeah, she cost red, white, white. I was looking over here. What do I need ramp in that deck for? So I can cast 3 cantrips a turn that I was already going to do.
Right. I think about that now. When we were writing the show, I was like, no.
We won ourselves over.
Exactly. In going through all these reasons, I think we won ourselves over because as we were planning the episode, both Derek and I were like, they are intriguing ideas, but am I going to change anything? No,
Well,
I
that's
don't think
one
so.
creature I could think of. I still would not. I feel like Zero Ramp is a very specific deck that you want to do it in. It needs to either want to make the game slow, or it wants to get out super fast and play little bitty things. Because you're crazy if you're going to be playing 5-6 CMC spells on turn 5, 6, 7. Like after that you've lost.
Right. I agree with that. And so we have just listed like 4 or 5 decks that probably don't need to be playing ramp, but like you said, they're very specific. If you don't think that you can recognize how many lands is enough, most newer players suffer from not enough lands, and ramp is kind of a crutch to prevent that. So that's one reason to just ignore that and consider the factors we talked about earlier. Pick some ramp spells to put in your deck. The other thing is if you're playing the 6, 7, 8 drops that are fun in Commander, put some ramp in your deck because it's going to feel bad when you go all game with it sitting in your hand going, if I could just draw another land. Oh, well, there's my 6th land, but this one, oh, it costs 8. Okay.
Yeah.
I've played enough of those games, and back then the solution was add more ramp. Big mana requires big ramp. Geshath requires big ramp. This is not absolutely, Derek, you're absolutely right. This is not for every archetype. I think, though, a lot of people are playing decks like Krinko, like John Arenicus, like Feather, like Grismold, that
they're
probably
still
don't
playing them mid-range.
Yeah, they're playing actual mid-range where the curve is centered around a 4-drop commander with 3 and 5 drops that synergize. And the ramp is just kind of awkwardly sitting between plays and not progressing the game plan enough to justify its existence. Because even as we've been thinking about this, I talked about the enchantment-based ramp that I've run in Grismold, and then I started thinking there's a lot of 2-mana token makers that would fit there pretty well. What's the fairy one?
Bitter Blossom.
Bitter Blossom. I don't have a Bitter Blossom in that deck. It's free every turn, and it blocks until you
Blossom. There's another one that amasses 1 at your upkeep. You lose a life and you amass 1. Dreadhorde Invasion.
There you go.
At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and amass zombies 1.
Mm-hmm. There's a few artifacts that can do it. There's a bunch in the true drop slot that would synergize, and the curve is low enough that it just doesn't need it. I'd probably keep Revel and Riches because that's a fun card. But what's Rampant Growth doing in my deck?
So all that to say, listeners, what do you think? What do you think about this very interesting take that not every deck needs ramp? I'm certainly open to experimenting, trying a deck without it. The only people I'm playing with are my play group and brackets 2 and 3. I never play EDH for stakes of any kind besides a good time. So if I lose, then like
put the ramp back in.
Put the ramp back in and go back to the way it was. I've lost nothing, right? There's no pride or glory that I've lost having experimented with a different way to build decks. But listeners, we certainly want to hear how you guys are building decks, what you guys are doing with ramp, what thoughts go through your head when you're putting the ramp in your decks. Benjamin and Derek, you guys have any closing remarks?
I do. I guess it's just, what do I think?
Yeah.
I think that Magic the Gathering is a resource. Well, it is a resource management game, but mana is one of your resources. And if you're not running ramp and your opponents are, you are falling behind that resource gathering. Like if someone's outspending you, they're probably going to win because they've got more stuff. You can't play something and do your own thing and then also have mana to counter whatever they're doing or deal with whatever they're doing. It's a very slow, very, not great way of playing. For my Red Rising fans out there, you have to find a way to change the paradigm where you make the resource management aspect of having mana work in favor of you. So either go faster or make everyone slower. Like maybe no one can play more than 1 spell a turn, or all my stuff has haste and they're going super fast. You got to do something to make this super detrimental flaw in your deck work for you, which is why I don't think this is for every deck. I certainly don't think it's for most decks. I think it's for maybe 1 or 2 types of decks.
That's an excellent point. Typically, the people who draw the most cards and spend the most mana win games. So if you're ramping, then you can spend more mana. You're right.
I mean, what 9 mana? I play a 9 mana creature. What are you going to do with your 5 or 6 mana creature? Like my 9 mana creature is probably a 9/9 with trample, or whatever.
It's probably got hexproof or ward, or
it's got tons of stuff on it.
Because if it costs 9, they're going to build in all those things to make it resist a 4 mana removal creature.
Yeah.
Like Ravenous Chupacabra is not going to be able to out a 9 mana something.
Yeah, or like it just says like, hey, if this deals combat damage, you just win, or something, crazy.
Yeah.
Because it's a high power, it's a reward for getting to that level of mana. And if I'm playing on turn 6, what are you going to do? How can you stop it if you can't do like more than one thing?
I mean, that was the whole point of our big mana episode, is that big mana wins games. So yeah, I'm gonna try it. We'll report back. I'm gonna go through several of my decks and take out the ramp. And next time we play, I'm not playing a single ramp spell.
I think I'll experiment with Pendragon.
I will probably leave in Soul Ring because I don't have that many turn 1 plays.
It's mana positive.
Yeah, it's mana positive.
Yeah.
It goes up. Yeah.
Yeah. But we'll be able to see if that does anything.
I'm interested to see.
And listeners, tell us, have you tried this? What do you think?
Yeah, have you tried it? What do you think? Just as we close out this episode, we're so close to 1,000, and we are so thankful to everyone who has made the trek over from Instagram and TikTok to find our YouTube channel. Our show is also available as an audio show on all of the major audio podcast platforms. So if you would like to listen to us on the go, that is always an option as well. Benjamin, Derek, this was such a fun episode. I love talking game theory with you. That's something I love about our Archetypes series, is we kind of get into the nitty-gritty about game theory and how magic works, how all of its pieces are interconnected. And this episode had a lot of that. It was a lot of fun to record with y'all. So listeners, thank you so much for listening. And Benjamin, Derek, thank you guys, as always, for being my great friends. Adios.
Bye. Bye, guys.
This episode was sponsored by Eldorado Gaming. Use the promo code META for 10% off your order. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. This episode was edited by me, Travis Konishek, and our intro and outro music is by Tyler Heath of the Oh Hellos.